The term Hindu extremism first appeared in the 80s, then became popular in the first decade of the 21st century, when Hindu groups carried out a series of attacks against Christians and Muslims in India. Hindu extremism is, to some extent, unique in that it is associated with Indian nationalism. Most of those considered Hindu extremists those who murdered non-Hindu people on the basis of religion, for example, do not wish for Hindu expansion or religious rule in the world, but rather seek to restore India to Hindus, emphasizing Hinduism, or the establishment of a Hindu state in India. Also, their ideology is not rooted and not based on religion, but rather the result of a growing sectarian vengeance. The development of Hindu extremism. Although Hindu extremism has deep historical roots, it is still shaped by regional and global events. Hinduism has been shaped over the centuries by its ability to absorb external influences and traditions. India was perhaps the only country where Islamic rule, which lasted nearly 1,000 years, did not convert the majority of the population to Islam. Nearly 4 centuries of European colonization, direct and indirect, did not succeed in converting the majority of the population to Christianity. However, this has led to the creation of large minority communities, both Muslims and Christians, along with the Hindu majority. Hindus and Muslims together fought against British imperialism in 1857. But when Muslim power in India gave way to British rule, awakening movements such as the Deobandi and Jamaat-e-Islami emerged. Confirmed these movements on the separation of Muslims, and were of a hardline and exclusionary nature. The reaction of Hindus to European colonialism and the Islamic awakening was manifested in various Hindu awakening movements, such as Arya Samaj, and Brahmo Samaj, among other movements. Later, in the 20th century, more politically mature movements aimed at preserving Hindu culture or Hindutva emerged, in the form of the Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement, RSS. Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement. The Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement emerged in 1924. It focused not on religion as much as on Hindu political and cultural identity, as a Hindu was defined as a person of Indian soil. In this sense, it included Indian Christians and Muslims within the Hindu, saying that most of them are mainly converts from Hinduism. The message statement of the Rashtriya Swayamsewak movement states that Hindu culture is the breath of life for Hindus. Hence, in order for Hindus to be protected, the Hindu culture should first be taken care of. And if Hindu culture dies in Hindustan itself, and if Hindu society ceases to exist, then it would not be appropriate to refer to the only remaining geographical entity as Hindustan. Hence, its stated aim was to instill pride in Hindus in their culture and heritage, and unite them, given their caste division, so that they could realize their potential, and restore India to its ancient glory. The system of caste and segregation among Hindus, so the argument goes, has weakened Hindus, and has allowed outside powers to rule India for centuries. European fascist-style modeling. Several academic studies claim that in an effort to instill discipline and unity among Hindus, the Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement attempted to model itself on the European fascism of the 1930s. Certainly some Indian activists who were fighting to end British rule, had sought to build alliances with countries such as Germany and Japan, due to the fact that they were opposed to the British. Italian scholar Marzia Casolari noted that between 1924 and 1935 Marathi Cesare published editorials and opinion pieces on Italy, fascism, and Mussolini. What impressed the Marathi journalists, as it seemed to them, that the socialist origin of fascism and the fact that the new regime had transformed Italy from a backward country into a power of the first order. For this reason, he traveled with me. S. Munji, theorist of the Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement, to Europe, including Italy, where he met Mussolini. However, the extent to which European fascism affected the Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement, if any, is outside the topic of this article. The movement's mission statement notes that the steady growth of the Sangh stands in marked contrast to many national or international movements, which, after an initial period of flare, slowly died of natural death or deteriorated and transformed so much that they became unrecognizable. However, Rashtraya Swayamsewak was distinguished by strict discipline. It was banned twice for a short period by the Indian government. It has evolved through time, but most of all, it has mobilized people through its humanitarian work, whether during the 1962 war with China, or in the aftermath of the disastrous 2001 earthquake, or in the field of education in some rural places in India, and has won praise from its rival party, Indian National Congress, and its secular leaders, like Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. Although Rashtraya Swayamsewak did not seek political power, she did and continues to work relentlessly among the masses of India, providing education, physical training, scriptural lessons, and human service. Its disciplined approach has enabled it to emerge as the largest non-governmental organization in the world. How Partition exacerbated Hindu extremism. British rule exacerbated the fault lines that existed between Hindus and Muslims that came to a head with the partition of India in 1947 into Muslim Pakistan and Hindu-majority India. The partition was bloody and violent. 7 million people were uprooted from their homes, the largest exodus of people in modern history. This has affected eastern and northwestern India, which is why the hostility of Hindu extremists to Muslims is more pronounced in northern India than anywhere else. Since Pakistan was established on religious grounds, the Hindu mentality has viewed aggression from a religious perspective, and it has become a cause of tension in Hindu-Muslim relations ever since. Rashtraya Swayamsewak was against partition, and an extremist from the organization, who had split from it, assassinated Mahatma Gandhi, the messenger of peace, in 1948 on the belief that Gandhi was doing too much for Pakistan. This was the first Hindu extremist criminal act in independent India. Perceptions of injustice. While the constitution made India a secular state, Indian secularism did not mean a complete divorce between state and religion, but rather the acceptance of different religions. In fact, the founding fathers of the Constitution granted special privileges and rights to minorities. For example, minority institutions are independent and exempt from government control. Secular India allowed all societies to be governed by their own laws. Each of them is related to marriage, divorce, and inheritance. The Muslim-majority state of Jammu and Kashmir was allowed special privileges not available to Indians in other states. Meanwhile, Hindu society alone was undergoing several reforms. The issue of religious conversion was a particular point of friction. While Hinduism is largely a non-missionary religion, Christian and Muslim missionaries have continued to engage in religious conversions of Hindus, mostly from marginalized castes. As a result, Hindu extremism manifested itself in anti-Muslim and anti-Christian sentiment. Hindu extremists have never had a problem with India's other non-missionary minorities, like Zoroastrianism, or Jewish communities. Nor have Hindu extremists been involved in any violence outside India. For they are not interested in spreading their view of the world beyond the borders of India. Nor did they try to impose their idea of Hinduism on other Hindus either. When they tried to impose their ideas, they were directed at only two groups, Christians and Muslims, which was reflected in the number of reconverts to Hinduism, because they claim that most of the Indian Christians and Muslims are basically converts. That is, they were before Hindus, and then they must return to their original religion, and get rid of the yoke of foreign slavery. Moreover, Hindu perceptions of injustice have given rise to groups such as the Vishva Hindu Balarishad and affiliated organizations that can mobilize people around them. These emphasized the Hindu character of India and the idea of reclaiming Hindu spaces. Its main goal is to counter the conversion of Hindus to Islam or Christianity, and try to bring converts back to Hinduism again. It has also tried to mobilize public support around other Hindu issues such as the ban on conversion from Hinduism, the ban on cow slaughter, stated in the Indian Constitution, and the construction of a Hindu temple at a controversial site. Over time, various groups of self-appointed guardians of Hindu morals and culture emerged and became involved in violence against vulnerable members of the Christian and Muslim communities. Not only that, but these groups also hunted down members of the Hindu community who practiced foreign traditions such as Valentine's Day. Most of these acts were concentrated in western and northern India. Extremism in other societies. Hindu extremism has also resulted from the extremism of other societies. The first example of a book being banned in India was Salman Rushdie's The Satanic Verses by the government out of respect for Muslim sentiments. As a result, later on, the exhibitions of the famous painter Maqbool Fateh Hussain were looted by groups of some rioters, claiming that it hurt Hindu feelings. Hussain was subjected to several prosecutions before the court. At times, such violence led to political polarization, which favored local politicians. On the other hand, Pakistan's claims of ownership of Jammu and Kashmir on the basis of religion, which has led to 3 wars with India, as well as several terrorist attacks within the country, have further conflated Hinduism with nationalism. Extremists believe that the security of Hindus lies in the integrity of India's borders. More recently, with the pervasiveness of globalization and the spread of the Internet, Hindu extremism has gained impetus as a result of the global rise of both political Islam and Islamophobia. Hindu cow guards. When the BJP, the political wing of the Rashtraya Swayamsewak movement, took power in 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised non-exclusion, and that all of his government's welfare schemes would not discriminate against any sect. Since then, sectarian violence has declined. However, a new type of extremism has emerged over the past 2 years. Individual groups of Hindus began practicing what became known as cow guarding. The cow is known to be a sacred animal in Hinduism, and most Hindus do not eat beef. However, non-Hindus remain major consumers of beef, and India is the largest exporter of beef in the world. To limit this, many states have passed laws prohibiting the slaughter of cows and the eating of beef. Cow protection policy has a long history in India, especially in northern India. Self-appointed cow guards militias began patrolling highways and maintaining security, confiscating funds on suspicion of smuggling livestock, eating beef, and sometimes even executing suspects for such acts they considered taboo. Thus, cow guards spread to states that prohibited the slaughter of cows. Those who transport cattle through these states require special permission, and sometimes legitimate cow carriers are threatened. Although there is economic cunning behind many of these cases, India has a large number of young people with growing unemployment, and this is a form of harassment of extortion. These policies have been crafted in religious terms, and the brutality of these crimes is undoubtedly reprehensible. For example, on the outskirts of the capital, Delhi, a man was simply executed on suspicion of having beef in his refrigerator. Lax law enforcement has emboldened cowkeepers. In another case, cowkeepers beat 3 people on suspicion of carrying beef. While violence in the name of protecting cows occurred under the previous government, there were no related deaths. Human Rights Watch documented 44 deaths, 36 of them Muslims, from May 2015 to December 2018 in 12 Indian states. Social media and the Internet have helped spread hatred and violence. In addition, cowkeepers have targeted Muslim men for allegedly seducing Hindu women. Most Hindus consider this to be abhorrent, as demonstrated by a large protest march organized against cowkeepers. They have also caused a loss to the economy. While the authorities have strongly criticized this phenomenon, they have failed to take strict criminal measures against the perpetrators, because law and order are among the topics related to federal legislation. In 2017, India's Supreme Court asked the central and state governments to take drastic measures to rein in cowkeepers. Recently, however, an Indian state passed a law against cowkeepers that will punish those convicted of violent acts in the name of cows with a prison term of 6 months to 3 years and a fine of money. Thus, Hindu extremism is less linked to Hindu beliefs and more linked to the growth of extremist vengeful sectarianism, similar to the right-wing extremism that is spreading in Europe and the United States now. The term Hindu extremism first appeared in the 80s, then became popular in the first decade of the 21st century, when Hindu groups carried out a series of attacks against Christians.